Yeah, I plan to stay involved. That was the agreement from the beginning, and just because we shortened up the driving side of it, and one of the reasons for that was that, I felt like that I came in here to help Michael and everyone create a competitive organization, and I feel like that I didn't have to be in the race car to help do that, and so I will continue to be a part of it in whatever capacity they're looking for. Certainly, I will be there for our young guys to lean on, to talk about different tracks, strategies, the cars, and do whatever we can to help this organization continue to grow.
I am officially retiring from the NFL and Green Bay Packers, and as much as I've thought about what I would say and how I promised I wouldn't get emotional.
In 2008, two legends of two very different sports, Dale Jarrett and Brett Favre, announced that they would be retiring from their respective sports. Never mind what happened after 2008, that never happened. But looking back, it's rather appropriate to see these two initially retire together, seeing as how at one time, these two were business partners. It's probably also appropriate I'm making this video the week of the Super Bowl, isn't it? But that's right, from 1999 to 2000, NASCAR driver Dale Jarrett and Green Bay Packers quarterback Brett Favre co-owned a NASCAR race team appropriately named Jarrett Favre Motorsports. In a previous episode of the Forgotten NASCAR Driver series, we touched on the career of Jarrett's son, Jason Jarrett. Now, let's talk about one of the teams that he competed for, the one owned by his father and the quarterback. Now, it's really not weird to see people from the NFL to try their hands at being a NASCAR owner. I mean, after all, take a look at Coach Joe Gibbs. This man won 3 Super Bowls with the Washington Redskins and went on to start one of NASCAR's greatest teams ever, scoring 1 championship with Bobby Labonte, 2 with Tony Stewart, and 2 with Kyle Busch. And then there was a team owned by Randy Moss. On second thought, Randy, your day on this series will be sooner rather than later. We're definitely going to talk about that one. But as for Favre, his aspirations as a NASCAR owner actually stretched as far back as 1997 when he first attempted to break into NASCAR. At the end of 1997, Favre was set to buy Bud Moore's Cup Series team along with driver Time Steele's father Harold. Steele had been one of ARCA's most dominating drivers since his rookie season in 1993, where he won his first ARCA championship, and in 1997 he went on to have a dream season, winning 12 races, including 5 in a row from September to October, en route to his 3rd ARCA championship. Because of the success Steele had at ARCA, he and his father definitely believed he was ready to go straight to Cup Series racing, and the move was actually justified in my opinion. He was 29 years old and he had some seat time in the Upper Series too, so Steele had agreed to a deal with the team of Bud Moore, but Moore couldn't afford to help Steele exclusively. Despite having won 63 races and 2 championships as an owner, by 1997 he just couldn't bring in funding for a full season like he once could. So Harold Steele and new business partner Brett Favre were ready to come in and take over, bringing Nike and Sony on as sponsors. Excited for what 1998 could be, Steele was set to race in the 1997 Cup Series finale with Bud Moore's racing team. To prepare for the race at the newly reconfigured Atlanta Motor Speedway, Steele took part in a 2-day test at Atlanta Motor Speedway on November 5, 1997. During his first run, Steele's fastest speed was nearly 192 miles per hour, and just to compare, that's nearly 7 miles per hour faster than the speed that Kyle Busch had in his 2018 Pole Award run. So this was looking to be a pretty competitive car, but after the first run, they made a change to the car that made it really loose. So loose, in fact, that Steele would lose the car at nearly 200 miles per hour, hitting the concrete wall on the driver's side of the car with his head impacting the concrete. When the safety crews reached Steele, he was unconscious. The crews would be forced to cut the roof off of the car and transport him to a local medical facility. Steele underwent a CAT scan, but no signs of head trauma were said to be found, but he did receive treatment for a sprained ankle. Seeing no reason not to compete, Steele would honor his entry in a NASCAR West competition at Las Vegas just 3 days later, which is crazy to think about because as we know today, Steele actually did suffer concussion that day. To this day, we may never know if he was hiding it or if they only found out later, but regardless, that was no time to recover. Steele would make just 2 practice runs before realizing the injuries were worse than they originally diagnosed. It was discovered by another doctor that his ankle wasn't just sprained, but it was more or less crushed, and it was also discovered he had 4 broken ribs. The doctor said that if he took another hard hit like that, it wouldn't be good for Steele. Therefore, he wasn't cleared by doctors to race anymore for the year. He sat out the ARCA season season finale and claimed his championship, and they withdrew him from the Cup Series race, and the announcement with Favre, the Steele family, and Bud Moore and their sponsors did not happen that weekend as originally planned. Favre and his team would not proceed in the purchase after this, and while Steele would race following his injuries, it wouldn't be the team he originally hoped for or the level of competition he had hoped for. While that NASCAR venture for Favre didn't go as planned, he wouldn't stop looking for his opportunity, and early in 1999, Favre would connect with Dale Jarrett, buying 25% in Jarrett's Busch Series team, and in the Stats of Racing reference, Jarrett's name as car owner ended after 1998, and Favre is shown as car owner thereafter. In 1999, Favre would be the man to wave the flag for the Daytona 500, and it was around this time that the partnership was announced. Favre, being Wisconsin's favorite quarterback, meant that he was able to successfully bring Madison, Wisconsin-based battery company Rayovac on as a primary sponsor for the team. This gave the team enough funding for 14 races, and originally the plan was for Robert Yates Racing Cup Series drivers Kenny Irwin Jr. and Dale Jarrett to split time in these races. Irwin, still being young, was slated to drive the number 11 Rayovac Ford in 11 races that year, while Dale Jarrett was scheduled to run in 3 races. The team made their debut at Texas Motor Speedway on March 27, 1999, and this would prove to be a very strong weekend for Kenny Irwin Jr. as not only did he score the pole award for the Cup Series race, he also finished 5th in the rain-shortened Busch Series race that weekend. With such a great start, you'd think that this is a great idea on the part of Brett Favre. Well, hold on a minute. Despite the hot start, Irwin Jr. would fail to qualify for their next race at California Speedway. Then, on May 26, Brett Favre attended a press conference at Charlotte Motor Speedway to announce the creation of the Jarrett Favre Driving Adventure, which was to be a new race car driving school held at Speedway similar to the Richard Petty driving experience. So how did his team do when Favre was in town for the race? Well, they failed to qualify again. Slowly, this would become a trend for Irwin when driving the car. All in all, Kenny Irwin Jr. would only complete 5 races for the team, failing to qualify for 5 as well. Towards the end of 1999, Irwin announced that he'd be leaving Robert Yates Racing to pursue the number 42 of Felix Sabates. After hearing this, Jarrett Favre Motorsports went ahead and cut their ties with Irwin earlier than originally expected. Irwin would deliver the team 2 5th-place finishes during his time, but as it would turn out, these would ultimately be the team's only 2 top 5s and top 10s. The other races of 1999 were divided up between Dale Jarrett, Steve Grissom, and Dale's son Jason Jarrett, also making 1 start. Jason's 1999 start in the 11 car came at Gateway, where he would finish 25th place. As for Dale Jarrett, he probably had the coolest paint scheme in this team's history, driving the car sponsored by Rayovac and the Green Bay Packers, but he only made 1 start rather than 3 like originally planned. This race was Darlington, and unfortunately Jarrett's race ended early on lap 93 after experiencing issues of overheating, resulting in a 39th place finish for Jarrett. Meanwhile, Steve Grissom would get the team into the last 4 races of 1999, getting a best finish of 13th at Memphis Raceway. With a less than stellar 1999 behind him, Jarrett Favre Motorsports, led by Jason Jarrett as their driver, with Rayovac back as a sponsor of number 11, and the team switched from Ford to Pontiac in an attempt to regain momentum in the sport, but sadly it was to no avail as Jarrett had an awful season in 2000, failing to qualify for 11 starts and making 17 races, where he would have an average finish of 31.1. It got so bad that at one point Jason Jarrett voluntarily gave up driving duties to focus on the greater good of the racing team. When he wasn't in the car was able to compete in 1 race with Hut Strickland behind the wheel, where he finished 28th, and Strickland would fail to qualify for 2 races with the team as well. In the Michigan race, the team also attempted to field a second car with Morgan Shepherd driving, but this car would also fail to qualify for the race. At the end of 2000, Rayovac would have nothing more to do with a losing race team, no matter if it was Brett Favre's, and they left. Being left sponsorless and having virtually no sign of a chance of improvement, Favre and Jarrett cut their losses and the team shut down before 2001. Just like that, Brett Favre's time in NASCAR as an owner was done, but I can't help but wonder how different things could have been had Time Steele never been injured. After this, Dale Jarrett would go on to race at Robert Yates Racing until 2006 before moving to Michael Waltrip Racing in 2007, retiring very early in 2008. As for Favre, he would continue to play for the Green Bay Packers, retiring from the NFL after the 2007 to 2008 season, only to come back with the New York Jets before doing 2 years with the Minnesota Vikings, and finally retiring after the 2010 to 2011 season. And that's the story of the rise and fall of Jarrett Favre Motorsports. That was quite the journey. Thanks to those of you in the comments who suggested this team, and thank you to NASCAR Man of Racing Reference for your 2 stories on this team. Without you and all the tools provided by the people at Racing Reference, these videos would definitely not be possible. Did you enjoy the video? If so, please drop a like on the video. It really does help my channel out a lot. Have a suggestion for a future video? Then please drop a comment down below. It may end up here on the channel. Also, if you're new here or if you just haven't done so yet, please consider hitting subscribe and joining us for all future content. You can also follow me on Twitter at DannyBTalks as well. And as always, I thank you so much for watching my video. I'll see you next time, and I hope you have a great day. Bye guys.